In 1993, a retired sheriff's deputy in rural Kentucky built a safe room for $200 using lumber he already owned and hardware from the local feed store. He was never robbed, never caught off guard, and when a home invasion happened 3 doors down in 2007, his neighbor's $40,000 panic room malfunctioned and locked from the outside. Number 14 on this list is what the panic room industry genuinely does not want you to price out. Hit subscribe, because what you are about to learn will make you look at every interior door in your house differently before you finish watching. Number 20. The interior door swap. Your hollow core interior doors are basically cardboard. Go knock on one right now. That sound you just heard is the sound of zero protection. A standard hollow core door, the kind installed in virtually every American home built after 1960, is a thin skin of wood veneer over a paper honeycomb core. One kick from a man in a hurry and it opens. Not on the second kick. On the first. Your great-grandparents did not have this problem because they did not have hollow doors. Every interior door in a 19th century farmhouse was solid wood, cut from timber that came off the same land the house sat on. Those doors weighed 40 pounds. They swelled in humidity and sealed in their frames like a bank vault. Nobody kicked them open because nobody could. A solid core interior door from any home improvement store costs between $80 and $150. That is the single most important upgrade you can make to any room you intend to shelter in. The weight alone changes everything. Hang it yourself on a Saturday morning, and you have just turned a hollow piece of theater into an actual barrier. The panic room industry starts their pitch at $20,000. You just accomplished the most critical part of it for $120. Number 19. The deadbolt on the inside. Most people lock their doors from the outside. Your safe room locks from the inside, and that changes everything about the equation. A standard deadbolt has a key cylinder on the exterior and a thumb turn on the interior. For your safe room, you want a deadbolt with a thumb turn on both sides, or better yet, a single-sided interior bolt with no exterior cylinder at all. No exterior cylinder means nothing to pick, nothing to bump, nothing to drill. There is no keyhole to attack because the lock was never designed to open from the hallway. Depression-era boarding houses in cities like Chicago and Pittsburgh use this exact configuration on tenant rooms because the landlord had learned the hard way that a pickable lock is just a slower open door. This modification costs $22 at any hardware store and takes 30 minutes to install. The bolt extends into the door frame and holds against lateral force that would snap a standard privacy lock in half. When you are inside that room and you throw that bolt, the only way through that door is by destroying it entirely, and destroying it takes time and makes noise, which is exactly what you needed to take and make. Number 18. The bedroom becomes the bunker. The best safe room is already in your house. You probably sleep in it every night. The master bedroom sits at the end of a hallway in most American home layouts, which means it has exactly one approach, and that approach is narrow and linear. Any threat coming toward that room has to travel a predictable path through a bottleneck. Your ancestors understood this geometry instinctively. Frontier cabin builders placed the sleeping room at the farthest interior point of the structure for exactly this reason. Not because they read about it, because they thought about what direction trouble would come from, and they put their most vulnerable hours as far from that direction as possible. The logic has not changed in 300 years. Look at your bedroom layout. Does it have a window with a viable escape route? Does it have a closet that could hold supplies? Is the door a solid core door? Those 3 questions define your baseline. The room itself costs nothing to designate. The upgrades on this list cost less than $200 total. A purpose-built panic room costs $20,000 and requires a contractor, a permit, and in some counties, a structural engineer. Your bedroom requires a Saturday afternoon and a trip to the hardware store. Number 17. The furniture stack. Physics does not care how expensive your door is. It cares about mass and friction. A 200-pound dresser wedged against a door adds more stopping power than most deadbolts, and it does it for $0 because you already own the dresser. This is not a new idea. This is one of the oldest ideas in the history of human shelter. Pioneer families barricading against raids on the frontier pushed every heavy piece of furniture they owned against the cabin door. Families in the siege of 1920s. Belfast stacked wardrobes against interior doors during sectarian violence. Medieval households barred their doors with timber beams that weighed more than the men carrying them. The principle is universal because the physics is universal. Identify the heaviest piece of furniture you own that can be moved to your safe room door. A large dresser with a full load of clothing in the drawers is ideal because the weight is distributed low and the base creates friction against the floor. Practice moving it once so you know exactly how it positions. In a real emergency, you will not have time to figure it out. You need muscle memory, not a plan you are reading for the first time at 2 in the morning. Number 16. The communication cache. Your phone will fail you at the exact worst moment. This is not pessimism. This is a pattern so consistent across documented emergencies that it barely qualifies as a prediction anymore. Cell towers overload during community-wide crises. Batteries die. Signals drop in interior rooms with no windows. The one device you are counting on to call for help will, at some point, become a very expensive paperweight. The fix costs $30. A dedicated prepaid phone, kept charged on a small cable in your safe room and used for nothing else, gives you a redundant communication line that does not share a battery with your daily life. A cheap NOAA weather alert radio adds another layer. 1930s farm families kept a battery-powered radio in the storm cellar, not because they were paranoid, but because they understood that information during a crisis is worth more than almost any physical supply you can stockpile. Write the local non-emergency police line on a piece of tape stuck to the back of that phone. Write your address. When adrenaline spikes, people forget their own street address. This has been documented in emergency call recordings so many times it is practically a cliché. Write it down before you need it, because the version of you who needs it will not be thinking clearly. Number 15. The water and food stash. Sheltering in place is not always about a home invasion. It is about the tornado, the wildfire, the grid failure, the situation where leaving is more dangerous than staying. And in every one of those scenarios, the room that has water and the room that does not are two very different rooms to be inside. Your grandparents kept their storm cellars stocked, not because they watched a survival YouTube channel, because they had seen enough springs in Oklahoma or Kansas or Missouri to know that the sky could turn green on a Tuesday afternoon with no particular warning. And you did not want to be scrambling for supplies when that happened. A gallon of water per person per day for 72 hours. A flat of canned goods with a pull tab opener. A manual can opener as backup, because the pull tabs always seem to break when it matters. These supplies rotate out annually and cost less than a single restaurant dinner for a family of 4. Stack them in the corner of your designated room inside a plastic bin with a lid. Label the bin with the rotation date. This is not prepping. This is what every grandmother who lived through the 1930s did without anyone calling it anything at all. Number 14. The closet conversion. Here is the one the panic room industry genuinely hates. A walk-in closet is already a small interior room with no exterior windows, typically located at the interior of the house floor plan, and already framed with the door opening. You are one solid core door, one deadbolt, and one weekend away from a hardened shelter that cost you under $300 total. Hidden rooms are not a modern luxury concept. Frontier homesteaders built concealed storage rooms behind false walls, specifically because they understood that an attacker who cannot find you cannot hurt you. Underground railroad safe houses throughout Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania used precisely this logic, concealing rooms behind furniture, beneath floorboards, and inside what appeared from the outside to be simple closets. The concealment was the protection. Your walk-in closet already has the concealment. Add the solid door. Add the interior deadbolt. Run a power strip along the baseboard for phone charging. Mount a small shelf for your supplies bin. Install a battery lantern on the shelf. You now have a room that a determined person cannot enter quietly, cannot enter quickly, and cannot enter without announcing themselves so loudly that your phone call to emergency services has time to connect. A $20,000 panic room does the same job. Yours does it for $280 and you built it yourself on a Saturday, which honestly feels better anyway. Number 13. The peephole in the safe room door. Opening a door to see what is happening on the other side is how people get hurt. A wide-angle door viewer, the kind that costs $4 at any hardware store, gives you a full 180-degree view of the hallway outside your safe room door without cracking it open by a single millimeter. Frontier cabin builders cut gun loops into their door planks for the same fundamental reason. A narrow horizontal opening through which you could observe, and if necessary respond to whatever was outside, without exposing yourself to whatever was outside. The geometry is identical. The principle is 300 years old. Only the application changed. Install the peephole at eye level for the shortest adult in your household, not for you. In an emergency, the person nearest the door may not be the tallest person in the room. A $4 peephole and a drill bit is all this requires. You can see everything happening in that hallway. Whatever is in that hallway cannot see you. That asymmetry of information is worth more than almost any other single modification on this list. Number 12. The noise deterrent kit. A burglar's primary enemy is noise, and an air horn produces 120 decibels from a can that fits in a shoebox. Keep one in your safe room. If someone is working on your door and they suddenly hear that sound from the other side, they face an immediate decision. Continue, and announce to every neighbor within 200 feet that something is happening at this address. Or leave. Most leave. This is extensively documented in interviews with convicted home invaders. The survey results are remarkably consistent. Noise was the variable that ended more attempts than locks, more attempts than dogs, and in some studies, more attempts than the presence of a firearm that was never displayed. The uncertainty created by noise, the question of who is making it, who can hear it, who is already calling somebody, is paralyzing to an opportunist who built his entire plan around silence and speed. An air horn costs $7. A battery-powered personal alarm with a pull pin costs $8 and screams at the same volume continuously until the pin is reinserted. Keep one of each. This is the noise deterrent kit. Your total investment is $15, and it weaponizes the one thing an intruder cannot afford. Number 11. The reinforced strike plate. This is the detail that makes locksmiths laugh when they look at most people's doors. You can install the most expensive deadbolt on the market and it does not matter at all if the strike plate holding it is attached to the door frame with half-inch screws. Those screws bite into a thin piece of pine trim, not into the structural stud behind it. One solid kick transfers all its force directly to those screws, and they pull out of soft wood like thumbtacks. 3-inch screws cost $3 for a box. They anchor the strike plate not to the pine trim but through it, into the 2x4 stud behind the frame. The force of a kick now has to overcome the structural framing of the house itself, not a decorative piece of trim. The door that folded in one kick now holds against repeated attempts, and repeated attempts make noise, take time, and attract attention. Do this on your safe room door specifically. Do it on your front and back doors as well while you have the drill out. The total modification for your entire house costs under $10 and takes 20 minutes. Your great-grandfather built his entire door frame from solid timber and never thought twice about it. We replaced that timber with pine trim and a half-inch screw and called it modern construction. Number 10. The safe room ladder. A second-floor safe room with no escape route is a trap with a deadbolt on it. Fire changes every calculation. A home invasion that starts a fire, accidentally or deliberately, turns your shelter into a cell. You need a way out that does not involve the door. A folding window escape ladder costs $25 to $35, hooks over a standard windowsill, and deploys in seconds. Miners in the coal towns of Pennsylvania and West Virginia kept rope ladders at second-floor windows in the early 1900s. Not because anyone told them to, but because they had seen enough fires in company housing to understand that a single exit point was a gamble they were not willing to take. Factory workers in the cities had absorbed the same lesson, sometimes in the most devastating way possible. Mount a hook beneath your safe room window specifically designed to hold the ladder. Practice deploying it once with the window open, so you know exactly how it catches and where it lands. This is not the kind of thing you want to figure out for the first time in smoke. The ladder gets you out. The safe room buys you time to reach the ladder. Together they are a complete system that costs under $40. Number 9. The battery lantern cache. Power outages happen during exactly the kinds of events that send you to your safe room in the first place. Tornadoes take out lines. Ice storms take out lines. A home invader who knows what they are doing takes out lines, because darkness is an ally and confusion is a tool. The safe room that loses its lighting loses most of its psychological advantage simultaneously. Depression-era families kept a kerosene lantern in the storm cellar the same way they kept the water. Not as an afterthought, as a non-negotiable. Light in a shelter is not a comfort item. It is a functional necessity that allows you to read your phone, locate your supplies, assess injuries, and maintain the mental composure that goes out the window the moment you are sitting in the dark, wondering what is happening outside that door. A hand-crank LED lantern costs $12 and requires no batteries whatsoever. Crank it for 60 seconds and it runs for 4 hours. Keep a second battery-powered lantern as a backup with a fresh set of batteries taped to the base. This costs $22 total and guarantees that your safe room is never dark, regardless of what is happening to your electrical panel. Number 8. The hidden room behind a bookshelf. This one sounds like a movie and costs about $90 in lumber and hardware. A bookshelf mounted on a piano hinge swings away from the wall to reveal the doorway behind it. The mechanism is straightforward enough that any person who has ever assembled flat-pack furniture can build it in an afternoon. And if you survived assembling flat-pack furniture, you can survive anything. Truly. This is not a Hollywood invention. Frontier homesteaders built hidden rooms behind false panels for storing valuables and, in genuine frontier violence situations, for hiding family members. Safe houses on the Underground Railroad throughout the 1840s and 1850s used this concealment method extensively, sometimes with concealed rooms accessible only through a trapdoor in a floor or a panel in a closet wall. The concealment was engineered with the same care we now apply to electronic security systems, using only hand tools and ingenuity. A bookshelf door adds a layer of protection that a standard door cannot provide, because it removes the door from consideration entirely. A person on the other side of that wall sees a bookshelf. They do not see a door to defeat. You can buy a pre-built bookshelf door kit online for around $200. You can build the same mechanism from scratch for $90. Either way, you have just added a level of concealment that no amount of deadbolt upgrading can replicate. Number 7. The interior window bar. This is the trick the retired Kentucky sheriff used. Simple hardened steel pins or bars installed inside the window frame of the safe room, preventing the window from being opened from outside even if the glass is broken. Not decorative bars bolted to the exterior, which look like bars and advertise the room's location. Interior pins that are invisible from outside and require deliberate removal from the inside. A window security pin costs $2. You drill a downward angled hole through the inner sash and into the outer sash frame and drop a steel pin in it. The window cannot be raised from outside regardless of what happens to the latch, regardless of whether the glass is intact. For a ground floor safe room, this eliminates the window as an entry point entirely. For a second floor room, it ensures the window remains a one-way exit for you rather than a two-way entry for whoever is below. Do every window in the safe room. Total cost for a room with 2 windows is $4.20. The sheriff who used this method was not a prepper. He was a man who had spent 30 years understanding how people gain unauthorized entry to places, and he applied that knowledge to his own home with whatever was cheap and effective. Number 6. The document and valuables cache. Your safe room protects more than bodies. It protects the paper trail that proves who you are and what you own. When the threat passes and you walk out that door, you need to walk out as someone with the ability to rebuild. That requires your documents. Pioneer families understood this without being told. The storm cellar held the land deed, the family Bible with birth records in the front pages, and cash kept well away from failing banks. A house burns down and gets rebuilt. Identity documents, once gone, are a different catastrophe entirely. A fireproof document box costs $25. Fill it with passport copies, birth certificates, insurance policies, and a USB drive containing digital backups of everything. Add an envelope of small bills, because electronic payment systems go down in exactly the emergencies that send you to this room. This box does not take much space, but it changes everything about what you emerge with. Number 5. The medical kit. Injuries happen in emergencies. This is not a morbid observation. It is the most predictable element of any crisis scenario, whether you are sheltering from a storm or a home invasion or a fire that you escaped before it spread. People cut themselves on broken glass. People hit their heads in the dark. People have medical conditions that stress exacerbates. The safe room that cannot address a basic injury is incomplete. Frontier families and Civil War households did not have the luxury of waiting for professional medical assistance that might be days away. Every woman who ran a household in rural America in the 1800s maintained a medical kit and knew how to use it, not because they had nursing training, because they had the practical intelligence to understand that the hour between an injury and professional help is the hour that determines the outcome. Your safe room medical kit needs pressure bandages, antiseptic, medical tape, a tourniquet, and the knowledge to apply it, a thermal emergency blanket, any prescription medications your family members take daily, and a printed first aid reference card. Total cost is around $35. It fits in a bag the size of a lunchbox. Mounted on the wall of the safe room at eye level. You should be able to find it in complete darkness by location alone. Number 4. The two-way radio. Cell service fails in crises with the reliability of a bad promise. Your safe room needs a communication system that does not depend on towers that can be overloaded, lines that can be cut, or a battery that was at 40% when the evening started. A NOAA weather radio costs $25, runs on batteries or a hand crank, and receives emergency broadcasts on frequencies that stay active when everything else goes dark. Add a pair of cheap FRS walkie-talkies, the kind that cost $20 for a pair, and you have the ability to communicate with a family member in another part of the house or yard without opening the safe room door. Civil defense households in the 1950s maintained exactly this kind of layered communication setup, not because the government mandated it, but because communities that had survived the Depression and a world war had developed a healthy respect for the fragility of systems that depended on infrastructure they did not control. A NOAA radio in your safe room tells you when the threat outside has passed. It tells you whether there is a broader emergency in your area. It tells you what is happening in the world while you are sitting in a locked room with no windows, which is otherwise an extremely disorienting experience that your brain will not handle gracefully without information coming in from somewhere. Number 3. The door bar brace. This is the $18 device that outperforms a deadbolt in a specific and critical way. A metal door bar brace, sometimes called a door security bar or a police bar, wedges at an angle between the door handle and the floor. The physics of this configuration means that the force of someone pushing or kicking the door is transferred through the bar directly into the floor, which is structural and essentially immovable. A deadbolt holds against lateral force at the bolt point. A door bar brace distributes the same force across the floor joists beneath your feet. They work differently, which is precisely why you want both. Together, a deadbolt and a door bar brace create a door that is genuinely difficult to defeat quickly, which is the entire game. Quick is what the attacker needs. Time is what you need. Tenement apartment dwellers in New York City used versions of this device through the early 1900s, often improvised from scavenged timber cut to the right angle. They knew what many modern homeowners do not. A lock is a legal and psychological barrier. A brace is a physical one. The distinction matters enormously when the person on the other side of the door has decided that the lock is not going to stop them. The brace might. Number 2. The safe room drill. Knowledge without practice is just reading. And reading is not what your hands do at 2 in the morning when the sound downstairs was not the cat. Every item on this list becomes exponentially more effective when every person in your household has physically performed the sequence at least once under calm, deliberate conditions. Frontier families drilled. Not in the organized, bureaucratic way we associate with the word drill now, but in the practical sense that every member of the household knew their role when trouble came. The children knew where to go. The adults knew what to grab. The sequence of actions was rehearsed often enough that it did not require conscious decision-making in the moment, because conscious decision-making under acute stress is slow and unreliable in ways that muscle memory is not. Run your family through the sequence once. Designate the room. Walk to it together. Throw the deadbolt. Position the door brace. Locate the lantern and turn it on. Find the communication cache and confirm the phone is charged. Open the supply bin and to confirm the water is there. This takes 7 minutes. Do it once, and your family has a script. Do it twice, and that script becomes instinct. An instinct under pressure is worth more than any door, any lock, and any supply that was never practiced. Number 1. The mindset. Everything on this list starts here. Every solid door, every reinforced strike plate, every document cache is an expression of one idea. Your great-grandparents understood so completely they never needed to say it out loud. Safety is not purchased. Safety is built. His storm cellar was stocked because he stocked it. His doors were solid because he hung solid doors. His family knew what to do because he showed them until it became instinct. He was not preparing for imagined catastrophe. He was maintaining the readiness that people who live close to real consequences maintain as a matter of basic dignity. The $20,000 panic room is what happens when a culture outsources everything, including its own protection, and pays monthly to feel like someone else is handling it. Your great-grandmother never paid anyone to handle it. She handled it herself. $200. One Saturday. And it held. Here's my challenge. Pick one item from this list and do it this week. Just one. Put the long screws in the strike plate of your bedroom door. Drop a door bar brace under the handle tonight. Put a prepaid phone on a charger in the closet and write your address on the back of it in permanent marker. Then come back and tell me in the comments which one you chose. Tell me if your grandparents had anything like this, because I promise you, somebody in your family tree understood every single thing on this list without ever calling it a safe room. They just called it being ready. The $200 version works. Your great-grandmother knew that without anyone selling it to her. Now you know it too.